Hazelight Studios' follow-up to 2021's The Game Awards Game of the Year winner It Takes Two is Split Fiction. What a sentence. A game that takes the two-player co-op split-screen puzzle platforming action to the codependent worlds of sci-fi and fantasy. Two authors who have shown up to this multi-whatever-dollar company with the promise of getting published discover that they will be hooked up to this simulation machine that allows them to live their story from within, but an accident occurs that thrusts one of the authors into the other author's simulation, causing glitches and stuff that they must now find a way out of. This is the groundwork of Split Fiction. Since you've got a sci-fi author and a fantasy author in the same thing, ideas are being drawn from both their minds, and they basically take turns swapping settings and stories between those two genres. It's mostly just set dressing, though, like it's an excuse for the gameplay to exist. The story isn't bad, but the gameplay is king, and it is given full control to shine in ways that are virtually unmatched in anything else. I don't know how you can play this game and not be blown away. There's just nothing else doing this. I was kind of lukewarm on It Takes Two. I think it had very little competition in 2021. But if we're talking pure gameplay, pure spectacle, pure experience, Split Fiction is magnitudes better. Especially the last 2 hours or so, you just blatantly do not get gameplay this good in other games. You don't. It's peak platforming, peak puzzle solving, peak co-op, peak video game, and the last couple chapters are where that becomes undeniable. Not to say the rest isn't good, because it's all great, but the crescendo is felt later on. Split Fiction ran me and Fish about 11 hours of total playtime, hitting every side story on the way, which are little, side stories that are optional diversions from the main level you're on that transport you to another idea from one of the authors. I can't imagine skipping these on purpose. You must have to beat this game in under 12 hours or a bomb will explode and kill your whole family to want to ignore these frankly delightful cranial excursions. None of them are too long, some of them have extra boss battles, and most of them are either cool or wacky. There's nothing to collect or earn per se, so the experience of playing this game is your reward for doing it, and that's more than enough. This is a pure, fun-driven game to share with your friend or significant other or relative or random guy you found in a Discord. It's a two-player exclusive game, in case you don't know. You can't do it solo, but if you have a friend that doesn't care about trophies, you can have them download the Friends Pass at no extra cost, so only one copy of the game needs to be purchased for two people to have a split fictioning time. So let's get to the game graph, where we're judging story, graphics, mechanics, and fun as separate categories before culminating with a big overall score at the end, starting with story. Split Fiction story exists. Really, it's a set of stories, and all of them exist. You play through them, and with the exception of a couple of harder-hitting parts, the why of what you're doing doesn't need to come up. It's like playing a Mario game. You really give a shit about how Bowser kidnapped Peach? No, but it's a springboard for terrific gameplay, and you'll thank it for that. The stories these authors, Mio and Zoe for the record, since I just realized I haven't named them yet, the stories they inhabit are narratively kind of rote and cliche. Like, you've got the sci-fi writer Mio doing this cyberpunk shit of like, ooh, we've got to destroy this corporation. The corporation is doing bad things to the city, and we're rebels, and we're resisting the corporation as part of the resistance rebellion. And then you've got the fantasy writer who's like, once upon a time there was a forest that was green, but then the evil Ice King wanted to make it icy and evil, so now the heroes of the green forest have to stop him from turning the forest not green. And there's some call for the stories to be like that, because these are unpublished writers for a reason, and they even complain about and make fun of each other's stories because they don't like each other's genres, and it doesn't weigh the experience down, I don't think. And not all of it is that contrived, I'm exaggerating a bit, but frankly you just won't care because the gameplay is so good. I'd take any thin excuse to play more of this. There was really only one time where I actually cringed at a plot device due to how cartoonishly edgy and childish a certain boss was. Otherwise, the writing is solid enough to not stand out negatively. I give the story a 70 as like a balanced average between the ups and downs. Next is graphics. Oh man, this game is gorgeous. The production value is off the charts, not in a ZOMG realism way, but just the design and the colors and the set pieces and the artistry of it all. It's art. Everything looks fantastic, whether it's sci-fi, whether it's fantasy, whether it's giant robots or farting pigs. There are things done in the endgame here that are so breathtaking, I'm like, I don't even know how it could be possible to program that. Games should aspire to this level of graphic design. The only thing that's any less than outstanding is the character models, but they're still good enough that there's no visible issues. Like, it ain't The Last of Us Part 2, but it absolutely does not need to be. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is one of the prettiest games ever made, and this game actually beats it at times. Graphics get a 95. Now we have mechanics, and let's make one thing perfectly clear. There's not a damn thing wrong with them. Every aspect of this gameplay is picture perfect, and there are so many aspects, it's insane that that's the case. You'll have a boss, and you could go through 5 different mechanical switch-ups during it, 4 different POVs, 3 different arenas. You can't take 3 steps without tripping over a new gameplay wrinkle. 1 minute you're an ape, the next a fish, the next a space soldier, a dragon, a ninja, a frickin' cat, dog, centipede. You'll go from dodging sand sharks and quicksand pits to avoiding shockwaves from a collapsing star. If you're Mio, you can be a fucking boat. This is hype, trust me. Maybe it's a me thing, but I loved being a boat, and maybe you'll love it too. Speaking of that, Mio and Zoe are 2 different characters, and they have very different transformations and gameplay available to them. I played as Mio, and other than the gravity whip Zoe gets early on in one of the sci-fi stories, I never looked at Zoe's gameplay and thought, oh, I wish I was that instead. It's not that her stuff is bad, I was just very satisfied with my own stuff and feel like I definitely chose the right character for my tastes. There's a great balance, there's no real rule that each character follows. Every unique gameplay element is fun in its own way, but I don't think you can take a certain type of player and tell them from the outset that they'll enjoy one character over the other. They both do an equal amount of platforming versus puzzle solving, so one isn't more passive than the other. Finally, I want to talk bosses. Split Fiction does bosses better than basically every other game on the planet. For the most part, they adapt, they learn. Weaknesses they may have had in the beginning, they will shore up as the fight progresses and make it harder for you to recreate openings. One of the bosses outright starts refusing to do the move that gets her damaged anymore because she's sick of it backfiring, and you have to literally hack into her mainframe and force her to start doing it again. It's next level shit. Bosses will transform and morph gameplay and start whole sequences of minigames and challenges that it's straight up exhausting to explain all of what they're capable of, and the final one is like this half-hour long tour de force sequence of just jaw-dropping technical prowess and creativity. Mechanics get 100. They threw everything at the wall and it all stuck. And now for fun. Is Split Fiction fun? Take a fucking guess. I haven't had this much fun playing a game in years. Part of that is inherently supported by the simple act of playing through a game with a friend, which will make anything better, obviously. But since it's required for this one, it's not possible to get a lower level experience unless the person you're playing with is actively ruining the game for you, which I guess they could, so maybe you're limited by who you know, but the ceiling is limitless. The last 2 hours me and Fish were playing, after every single goddamn obstacle or challenge or whatever, we were just saying back and forth to each other, there's nothing wrong with this game. It's like advancing to a higher plane of existence. You play through it and you're like, God, what a clever fucking puzzle. Jesus, this platforming is amazing. Holy ghost, that sequence was impressive. Smiles didn't leave my face for minutes at a time, and maybe that doesn't sound like much, but try to smile right now for multiple minutes without faltering or straining. It's unnatural, but this game makes it natural subconsciously. I've heard some quibbles and criticisms about this game from people online, and I'm impressed by the cynical gall it takes to have some of them. One person said the game has too much filler platforming. I don't even know what the hell that means, dude. It's a platformer. Maybe the most platformy platformer by definition, the way it takes every single platforming convention and sticks it somewhere in here. How can a game have too much filler platforming when it also has more kinds of platforming than any other platformer? The only reason you're even noticing the more basic platforming is because there's so much elevated platforming going on that it makes it look bad by comparison, but it's not. Grapple hooks and slides are the backbone of platforming. There's no better connective tissue between incredible set pieces like, oh no, I have to swing a couple times to get from one transcendent experience to the next. Someone put me out of my misery. Fun gets 100. And now for the overall score, which is not an aggregate of the previous scores because some things are weighted differently. I'm giving Split Fiction a 98 out of 100. It really is that bitch. That's gonna do it for this review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Watch all my other videos with a random guy in the Discord, and I'll see you guys next time.